that. But yes, learning more details about the people who were displaced, the dozens of people who were displaced and hospitalized as well. And we don't know of course, the condition of how they are as well. So those are still some details that we'll have to follow up on.
Definitely. I'm just thinking about what a hard time it is. The holidays are here. We just had Christmas a few days ago. Kids are out of school. We have New Year's in a few days. Obviously, it is bitterly cold out there. I know KCTV5 meteorologist Melissa Meter was just up here about half an hour ago talking about those temperatures we'll be facing into the morning. It is going to be absolutely frigid out there. Obviously, again, just so thankful for our first responders, Kansas City Fire Department, who worked quickly to save these people. And thankfully, obviously it's still active. As we can see, this is a live look from our reporter, Chandler Watkins, on the scene here. Thankfully, the fire is now out, but obviously they're still working in the area. And again, 5 people were rescued, 1 was taken to the hospital, and 14 total were displaced.
And to your point about the quick response here, I mean, we were notified as a newsroom, this came into our newsroom around 7:45 about the second call, and that they were already responding to this apartment fire. And by the time that we were able to confirm with the chief that the majority of the fire had been put out and they're just kind of dealing with these hotspots was by 8:20. So, I mean, we're talking roughly 7:45, to 8:20. Yeah. It's a pretty rapid response in getting people out and getting taken care of. And again, addressing the fact that they did have, 3 people who were treated on scene. He mentioned 5 ambulances being called to the area as well. And you could see, again, I mean, there are multiple crews that are actively there at this point, and of course going ahead and taking one person to the hospital. But in emergency situations, minutes matter.
They do.
They really make a huge difference. And we still, of course, they're going to be launching their investigation to figure out what the cause of this fire was. We don't know. And I think what's also distinct, again, by the time that Chandler got there, she wasn't really seeing any flames. And so I'm curious, what the scope of that fire was and how evacuation, if there was an evacuation, kind of took place, or what that looked like to be able to get those people out and taken care of. So a lot, there's several questions here, but so far, definitely good news. And you could tell that the chief, he wasn't too alarmed, which is a good thing to say.
Oh, for sure. And again, you can see the countless firefighters there now. Looks like they're on that 2nd or 3rd story of that apartment building here. Obviously, you can see a lot of damage to this complex. And Michael Hopkins mentioned, in this situation, no firefighters seem as of now. But just earlier today, we got word that 4 firefighters were hurt in Kansas City, Kansas. I mean, obviously, this is such a dangerous job. And I think, this story that we covered earlier here today at KCTV5 is just a testament to quite literally the dangers that these firefighters are put in and day out.
And again, we don't know the cause of this, but what was interesting was that the chief had brought up, it is cold and folks are heating their homes, and, he mentioned space heaters. And one of the things that we report on here at KCTV5, and during this time, there's always a conversation of, okay, how often do we need to mention this? People usually know, but it always is a really nice reminder about the safety. And so just kind of walking through some of the safety tips around space heaters for you all, just a reminder, because we want to avoid scenes like this. Again, we do not know what would cause this fire. I want to be very clear, but as we're all ramping up the heat in our homes and trying to stay warm, we also want to stay safe. So you want to make sure you're plugging directly into wall outlets. You don't want to really use extension cords or those power strips to be able to heat your home with a space heater. You want to keep a 3-foot rule with your space heater and anything else. I mean, if it's by bedding, that's a problem. If it's by furniture, it's a problem. So you want to kind of keep that distance. You want to place it on a flat surface. Nothing should be rickety when it comes to that space heater. You don't want it to tip over. You don't want to have any problems. And when you're not using it, you want to make sure that you unplug it as well. So I'm just throwing that out there. Again, not necessarily tying that to what we just saw unfold and with our live pictures, but acknowledging that, as a lot of us, we got space heaters in our home or are just trying to stay warm. Kind of the safety precautions that we want to take, since the chief brought it up.
Yeah, and thinking about the drastic weather changes we've had in the past few days, I mean, this weekend I was in shorts and a t-shirt outside, and now it's probably, feeling like about 10 to 15 degrees out there. Again, these drastic changes could be a reason that people are plugging in the space heaters, heated blankets. I'm one of those people that loves a heated blanket, but not gonna lie, you just don't want to be in that sort of situation. There was one time I smelled smoke from my heated blanket.
Oh, you did? Oh, my
After
goodness.
that, I unplugged it. Haven't used it since.
There you go. Yeah, you said that's a wrap on that.
Yep.
I completely can. Honestly, shockingly, being in a cold place back again, because I was in Atlanta before this, and I kind of got rid of a lot of the winter stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, just taking a look back here live as our photographer, is going to be moving around, and we're going to keep showing you these active pictures as we get them, because there is a lot happening on the scene, and this is you want to give a refresher on where this is?
Yes, okay. Yep, I do. I know we have quite a few new viewers here on the stream within the past few minutes, whether you're viewing on Facebook, YouTube, or even the KCTV 5 Plus streaming app. A lot of people are wondering exactly where this is. This is a 1700 block of Kansas Avenue. Here is a view from Google Maps of this apartment complex. You can see there are quite a few different buildings here, countless parking spots. You can really only imagine how many people were here. I mean, it's a Monday night. It was about, 7:30 whenever this fire broke out. So, people were probably just wrapping up their day, relaxing, cooking dinner, doing everything you do after the Monday following Christmas week. And, I do want to go ahead and pull it back to this live video here. Our KCTV5 photographer has zoomed in here. I mean, you can just see substantial damage, tragic day. Our thoughts do go out to everyone impacted by this, those 14 people displaced.
Yeah, and I'm trying to really, I'm looking just to see kind of if we can spot anything. But yes, it appears that this is not on the first floor. This seems higher up.
Yep.
I don't know how many stories exactly, just based on what we're looking at, this apartment complex is. But the fact that he just panned the camera over and you saw how this spread through clearly multiple units, that is something that is new to us, just based off of our eye at this point. Of course, we interviewed Battalion Chief Michael Hopkins just about 10 minutes ago, I would say.
Yep.
Our Chandler Watkins spoke with him. And Katie, as you mentioned, if for the folks who are coming in right now, we are in breaking coverage of an apartment fire that KCFD has responded to, multiple rescues taking place here, and a very active scene. The Battalion Chief saying that there are still hot spots that they are tending to, but the flames, the typical fire that you would imagine and think of, they are put out. But this has affected people. This has displaced people. Katie, you're talking about this was around 7:30, 7:45 that we were getting reports of this fire. And as you mentioned, you said people are home. They're back from work, they're home, or even just through the holidays, maybe they weren't working at all, and just dinner time, families in town, maybe even staying there. So definitely a busy time. But
for sure,
we learned 14 people are displaced as a result of what you're seeing on your screen right now. And there were 5 rescues that crews had to conduct, with one person being taken to a local area hospital and 3 folks being treated on scene. And we do not know the scope of how they are doing, but that is what the chief had told our reporter Chandler Watkins. And towards the end of the interview, again, they don't have an idea of what caused this fire, and they're going to be investigating that. But he did mention that this is one in several fires that they have been responding to over the past couple of weeks, that it has ramped up.
Yes.
And he mentioned space heaters and just the fact of it's cold. It's dipped back down significantly. We had a massive swing in temperatures, and he felt safe to say of alluding to that maybe being an issue. So, that was a detail that is important to note.
Yeah, and Lauren, I know we did already mention the cause of this fire is unknown, but Michael Hopkins said that one of the leading things that are causing fires this time of year are space heaters, ovens, potentially even candles. And Lauren, you actually had some great tips for people that are using those to stay safe this time of year. And I think another good thing to touch on is it's only December. We're cold here from all of January, all of February, sometimes even into March, we have a surprise snow. So people are going to be warming their homes for months. It's not like we're towards the end of this and spring is coming. I mean, we're only just getting started. Obviously, we had that really just amazing, beautiful week last week with weather. I was out on the trail in shorts and a t-shirt, and now it has dipped again and is frigid. Again, we are getting some more footage here, live scene footage from the 1700 block of Kansas Avenue. I mean, look at that.
And just, I'm also looking, because our Chandler Watkins is taking photos as well. She's on the scene, and
Yeah.
that's also being published to KCTV5.com as we're continuing to update as well, both on streaming and our digital platform. And just looking at that a photo that she had sent, this does look like a 3-story structure, apartment building, and so the bulk of the damage, as you're seeing, is on that top floor. And again, I just have to note, here's an expanded view. You can see from left to right. I mean, there's that middle column there, and of course, it looks like brick, so you can't really see how much damage is in between that. But I mean, it really spans, and I can't help but to think also structural integrity of this apartment fire. Katie, you mentioned that there were 4 other firefighters that have been hospitalized or had some sort of issue responding, and one of those incidents, crews, they were responding and they fell through the floor to a basement. So you also got to think, when we say an active scene, it's not just, oh, well, I don't see flames. Just because you don't see flames, there could still be hot spots, and also just, is the structure safe, and just kind of looking at it in that way, at the damage that we're looking at. So we'll also be learning kind of what are next steps for the people who live here when this is the result. You know, of course, the first and foremost importance is the lives that are within there, and making sure that people are safe and okay. And again, noting the fact that there were 5 rescues, 1 hospitalized, 3 treated on scene. So we're going to be waiting for those details, and certainly including them in our 10 o'clock news. And the other thing to note here was that second alarm.
That's what I was going to ask you about. It was actually my first time hearing about a second alarm, and I know you did some research. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, maybe for people that just joined?
Sure. So when we first got the news into our newsroom that there was a response to this apartment fire and that multiple rescues were being made, around 7:45 this evening, the battalion chief, Michael Hopkins, had sent out an alert saying that he was headed to the scene, that it was very active, and that he was issuing a second alarm. And so what that means is, first, when crews arrive, there's kind of an initial response. Of course, they're kind of getting the lay of the land and tending to people, right? That emergency response. But if they realize that the fire has escalated beyond the control of the initial kind of response that they are coming to, that they're going to request extra manpower or extra equipment. And so that's when that second alarm will come out to kind of call for that. And we saw, we have a tool basically that essentially shows us how many different units are being called, literally by battalion, and you could just see that number tick up majorly. And in the end, he said that, and I'm referring back to my notes here from the interview that he shared with Chandler Watkins, that there were 5 ambulances that had responded, and I think over a dozen is what I had written down, crews that had dispatched total to be able to respond to what we're seeing play out.
Yeah, again, Lauren, I want to go back to this live look of these apartments at 1700 Kansas Avenue here in Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, I think just hearing about that second alarm shows just how quickly things ramped up at this apartment complex. And again, 5 people had to be rescued, which means they couldn't even get out of the building by foot. Obviously, such a scary situation for anyone to be in. And again, we're just so thankful for our first responders here in Kansas City. And we are learning that obviously there's an ongoing investigation. Sometimes these things take a while to piece together. It might not be something that we have answers to by the 10 o'clock newscast, but we are, of course, tracking all of these developments here at KCTV5.
We'll be staying with it. So far, I will say that the timeline and response and learning basically what is happening here has been pretty quick. You know, when we received the report about this, it was around 7:30, 7:45 when this started this evening. Yeah. And by about 8:20, that's when we received confirmation of the main fire, right, the bulk of the fire being put out. So the response was pretty rapid. And then soon after that confirmation, then we were able to grab that interview with Michael Hopkins, battalion chief, who was immediately able to tell us how many people were affected and the one person being hospitalized and some folks being treated on the ground there as well. So pretty quick time. So hopefully we'll have some more answers based on just how this is tracked so far in response and also just not only response to the fire, but also letting us know details. It seems like they're pretty clear on that so far.
Yeah, and you know, something that we see a lot with these fires when people are displaced, whether it's a home, whether it's an apartment building, whatever the case may be, is that the Red Cross actually steps in and helps these people. So again, we're not sure exactly where these 14 displaced individuals will go, but of course the American Red Cross has these disaster recovery services. I mean, they help people everywhere. There's fire, flood, tornado. I mean, they really step in, and I'm actually on their website now. I want to see what they say exactly about people who are displaced due to house fires. And I mean, even on their website here, I'm looking at these emergency resources in this library. They have everything from drought, earthquake, extreme heat. I mean, there really are just so many scenarios that could displace people from their homes.
And that's the thing. I mean, you know, they don't, it's an emergency for a reason. And, you know, no one, of course, wishes for something like this to happen. And you never think about it until, unfortunately, it happens to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what these groups are for, to help you on arguably one of the worst days and when unexpected things happen. And, I mean, this is your home. Home is a safe place. It should be. And something that you feel, especially in this season, not only because of the weather, but, you know, we're coming off of a holiday, rolling towards the end of the year into the new one, and bam, it's like this happens. But hopefully, you know, the folks that were displaced, I mean, having a rapid response, again, it makes all the difference. We were talking earlier about how in emergency environments and settings, and we see it often when reporting, minutes do matter. I mean, it's the difference sometimes between life and death, you know, how quickly a recovery can happen, depending on the nature of the scene and what we're dealing with. And in this case, things went very quickly, and, you know, they were able to respond at a pretty rapid pace and get people who needed to get out with those 14 people. And again, 5 rescues that were made, 1 person taken to the hospital, 3 others who were treated on scene, getting them that triage immediately, whatever it is that they needed. We do not know the extent if they're, you know, of injury or what exactly the person who was hospitalized, what is being dealt with. So those are some lingering questions, of course, for those lives that we have. And to your point of what comes next, you know, what caused this? The hot spots, there were still hot spots that the chief said that the fire crews were addressing, and we saw it's not like they were peeling off just yet. We saw multiple crews still actively there and working, seeing multiple firefighters, boots on the ground as well. So we're still going to be trying to get answers in regards to that for you all as well. But seemingly, we're definitely on the downside of something that escalated pretty quickly.
100%. And just to speak again on how quickly these things can escalate, as soon as we heard these news, a KCTV5 crew was on the way. By the time they arrived, the fire was out. And again, minutes, seconds matter in these kinds of things. Again, I can't help but thinking about the 14 people who basically have to uproot their lives and restart around the holidays. Again, just such a tragedy, and so thankful for those first responders, and, you know, thinking of those 5 people who had to be rescued, the 1 person in the hospital. It's just so much.
Yeah, it's a lot, and, you know, unfortunate, but again, good to hear kind of some more information about it. And while there are still questions, I have to just harp on this because the chief did bring it up. While we don't know what the cause was, the fact that he mentioned, you know, temperatures are dipping here, we've been spoiled by having warmer weather. I think, you know, we all were like, wow, it's Christmas and it's 60s, like, who would have thought? But at this point, this is when the space heaters crank up, and, you know, folks, you talked about a warming blanket or using ovens and things like that to heat the home. And so he did speak about that towards the end of our interview with him. And again, not saying necessarily that was the cause of this. That's still under investigation. Exactly. But noting that they have seen an uptick in having to respond to fires and that being part of the mix. So definitely all those tips and tricks that we kind of know in the back of our head, but maybe we don't
Yes.
think twice about it at this point. Like, this is the season to refresh and kind of remember that. And so that's something that we talk about here at KCTV5 as well, those space heaters in particular.
Yeah.
Keep them flat. You want to plug them into the wall. You don't want to put them into a power strip or something like that.
No.
Keep them away from the blankets, away from the furniture. You want to make sure if you got pets or something that they can maybe knock it down. Just trying to keep it clear.
Yeah.
There's a 3-foot rule in particular with when I mentioned the bedding and stuff like that. You want to keep it, and also not leaving it plugged in
That's the thing.
for too long. And I know some of them, they got settings that can kind of help with that and auto kick off.
Right.
So, just to keep in mind.
Yeah, and another thing about those space heaters, I know people like to sleep with them on. Obviously, it warms up your whole room. It feels so great. But, if you're asleep, you're not going to be able to respond if an emergency situation does happen. And again, just another tip, I think, is just keeping blankets and other stacks of things off of those space heaters, because that can kind of crowd it. And again, we don't know what causes fire, but Chief Hopkins also talked about it as well.
No, absolutely. And Katie, I don't. Do we still have live pictures available to us? Or
So
are they
live
moving
pictures are down. I'll pull up
Okay.
a map as I get some still photos.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on that as well, because they keep
yeah.
feeding us back some visuals.
So many visuals.
And if we have any other questions in the chat that folks may have, because we have been, as soon as we were able to get up live to bring this to you, we came straight up with the latest information, including that interview with the battalion chief. And so if you all have any questions and you're joining in a little late, please feel free to put that in the chat and we'll answer anything that you may have in mind regarding
Yeah.
this response to multiple rescues and an apartment fire that was in East Kansas City.
Exactly.
Again, on the 1700 block of Kansas Avenue. This is not on the Kansas side. This is on the Missouri side in an apartment building complex. And so we're pulling up that map just so you can see where exactly that is, as well as getting some more visuals for you. But this is basically looking like a 3-story apartment structure. And the damage that we can see so far is higher up. It's between that second and third level. And it really does span, pretty much the bulk of the building from left to right, and there's this kind of brick column in the middle that seems like it's again, with the naked eye, don't know structurally how this is standing or what the safety basically is of the structure. We were just talking about how there were 4 firefighters there you go, there's a picture of what I'm describing here, and you can see the windows are blown out. The siding is completely destroyed. So we'll leave that up for you just so you can get a look at it if you're coming in a little bit later here. But we were talking about some other firefighters that we had learned in 2 different incidences that they had responded and were injured responding to, again, these are 2 different fires. And for one of the incidents, they were standing and fell through the flooring to a basement. And that was the cause of injury for that response. And so, it's another consideration. It's like you get the people out, you address whatever their needs are, making sure, and we learned from the battalion chief that there were 5 rescues at this apartment fire that you're looking at here, with 1 person being taken to the hospital and 3 being treated on scene. But also, there's, of course, danger for the responders as well. And so the chief had mentioned that there were some hot spots at this point. He mentioned that around 8:30, I want to say, roughly 8:30.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it's 8:50 at this point. We haven't received an update on whether or not that's been completely put out or whether or not we're in the clear here. We're still waiting for that. But at last check, when our crews had arrived, by the time they arrived, which was around, I'd say, 8 o'clock. Do I have that right, Katie?
Let me double check on the timing of our first.
By the time that they got there, there
notification.
were no visible flames.
Yep.
Which is good.
Very good.
You want to see kind of rapid response
Yeah.
there.
Yep. Lauren, this is hitting close to home for even someone in our comments on the KCTV5 Plus streaming desk. Someone said that this is their old neighborhood again. Obviously, a lot of the Kansas City community is so tight-knit, but just like to see that really just brings it another layer, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. These are our neighborhoods, right?
Yep.
And we were just talking about the time of year and regardless of the time of year, the holiday season, but it's worth noting because people are home during this time. And when we received reports of an apartment fire that was breaking out, it was around 7:30, right? And unfortunately, with instances, you kind of think about that. Okay, are people, and same thing with accidents or being out on the road. Is it during a busy time, traffic hour where this is happening, or at least is it not as busy and you don't have to worry about it so much? And so this is one of the things that you go, okay, well, when this is happening at 7:30, 7:45, there are more people to consider. There's a lot more happening, more people are home.
Yep.
Maybe we're making dinner, or even just around this season having family in town or friends, gathering at this point. So
Yep.
definitely for the person who shared that in the comments, our hearts are going out to this neighborhood. And Katie, you were mentioning the 14 people who are displaced now that we've learned as a result of this fire, and kind of what next steps are for them.
Yeah, and to think about all the material possessions, of course, they
Yeah.
don't matter in the grand scheme of things, but to think about, things that may have just been given as holiday gifts, things that are passed down, family photos, it looks like there was significant damage, so much of that could have very well been lost in that fire. And I mean, same thing, whenever we deal with any sort of natural disaster, fire, flood situation, oftentimes people are left having to start from scratch. And again, 14 people are displaced, meaning they won't get to sleep in their own beds tonight.
Yeah, first it's the adrenaline rush of,
Right.
oh, this is happening, right? We were talking earlier about the fact that we share it on the news of what's going on in our neighborhoods and the unfortunate emergencies that happen, and hopefully we get to tell you that the response is rapid, that everyone's okay, and
Yes.
that's what we hope for. But it is pretty wild because most of the time, you don't think anything of it until it happens to you. And even when responding, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken with people in situations like this, and it is not the first thing that crosses their mind, and they're in shock that this
Exactly.
could happen to my home and at this time. And, we all have lives, we all have things going on, and inconvenient doesn't even begin to explain what this kind of a situation does to a person, to a family. And
Just
so
life-altering.
yeah, and so
For
the
sure.
organizations you mentioned, organizations like Red Cross, and
Yep.
I know you've spoken, with a lot of these organizations about the work that they
Yeah.
do to be able to help people get back on their feet when emergencies like this happen.
And it's oftentimes too that things like these, when it happens in someone's community, they want to go ahead and volunteer, donate things that they have. I know whenever there is a big, if there's an accident, something traumatic, people will donate blood and just get out there. Obviously, this is, of course, a lesson just to, be aware of what's going on in your home, what's plugged into outlets. If you do have things heating up your home, obviously, again, we don't know the cause of this fire.
Yeah, lots of questions. Yeah, so I want to run through one more time
Yeah,
just
let's
what
do
we
it.
know and what we are going to learn and work to learn,
Yes.
and especially with our 10 o'clock news, and we can try to get that information to you as soon as possible. And if we get, resounding information, of course, we'll bring it to you straight on KCTV5 Plus, and also on our website, kctv5.com, where you'll also find a running kind of updating story on this
Yeah.
as well. So you got multiple options to kind of stay in the loop here. Our app, KCTV5 News.
Oh, yeah.
But we got our first report of this response to an apartment fire in Kansas City, Missouri. This is the 1700 block. They're looking at the map right now off Kansas Avenue. And we received that around 7:30, 7:45, that rescues were underway by Kansas City Fire Department. The other alert that we got was that a second alarm was put out. And a second alarm meaning that when crews arrived on scene, they obviously were taking, surveilling what was happening and what all was going to be needed, and that the fire had escalated beyond what they had brought for an initial response. So that call went out. More crews were brought in, ambulances as well. I think I even saw kind of in a list that potentially maybe a drone. Do not quote me on that, but you got to think about technology and the
Oh,
use of
yeah.
that and how that can help when
Definitely.
responding to things. So that's something I'm curious about to
Oh,
see
yeah.
as far as response is concerned. So again, that was around 7:30, 7:45. And then our team was on the ground, immediately bringing pictures like this straight to you, bringing us live video of the scene. And at that point in time, it was, incredibly active, likely still is, but incredibly active. Michael Hopkins, who
Yep.
then explained to us that the fire had been put out, but there were still hot spots that crews were